Okay, guys, we've seen the Watchers. Now we got to talk about the spoilers. We got to talk about the ending, and we got to talk about a theory that's really been stuck in my head since I saw it in the theaters. Let's do it. Let's go.
Let's get down to brass tacks.
The ending of The Watchers was interesting, it was surprising, and quite poetic. We followed our lead character, Mina, played by Dakota Fanning, as she became trapped in a dark and mysterious forest in West Ireland. There, she befriends three strangers who are also trapped in that place, and they hide out in this bunker that they call the Coop. Now, what Mina doesn't know, and of course we as the viewers, we do know, is that there's a group of these mysterious, powerful dark creatures that inhabit the woods, and they make it virtually impossible to leave. Like, no one gets out of this place alive. Madeline is the older of the group and the most knowledgeable of things, of what's going on, and she warns the others that there are rules that must be followed at the coop. Now, that includes making sure that they are inside of the coop by nightfall, and they also need to make sure that they face the front wall of the coop, which is like a two-sided mirror. The creatures, they can watch the group through it, but the strangers or the people, the characters, they can't see outside of it. All they see is their mirror reflection. Now, Mina is the only one of the group that doesn't want to play by the rules, and she's intent on finding a way to escape the woods. Now, after a lot of weeks and just going through their day-to-day, a few failed attempts as well, including being locked out of the coop by Daniel, the Watchers, they break into the coop. Now, fortunately, the group finds a hidden hatch underneath of like a carpet, and it has this ladder, and it leads below to a basement full of notes and pictures and food and a computer, and it has the answers that Mina's been looking for, or at least that she thinks she's been looking for. A set of messages from this professor gives a background on the woods, his connection with the woods, why the coop even exists, and directions for their escape. We also come to understand the Watchers are an ancient race that lived amongst humans. They were called changelings or fairies, and they were basically like gods and protectors of man. Now, after learning on how to escape from the bunker, Madeline, Sierra, Daniel, and Dakota Fanning's Mina follow the birds to the edge of the forest. It's supposed to be an area that leads to the water, and there's a boat. Now, this is at the end of the film where you still don't know exactly what's going on, and we know that the Watchers are somewhere out there, and it's becoming dark. You know, it's almost nighttime, so they are not supposed to be outside of the coop. Madeline had warned them over and over and over again, we have to be inside the coop or else they will kill us. So they get to the to where the water is, and there's a boat there, but they get separated, and Daniel is separated from the other three ladies, and all of a sudden you see that the Watchers are coming to the edge of the forest, and one of them looks like Sierra's dead husband, John. And so Daniel unfortunately gets killed, and the other three, they just row off on the boat. Now, the other thing that we didn't know is that everyone isn't initially who we thought they were. Mina, Sierra, and Madeline make it out alive, and then Mina decides to fulfill her promise to visit the professor's office, Professor Kilmartin, because he asked for anyone, if they got out alive, to destroy his work. It should not be followed. So she goes to the office to destroy whatever information he had on the changelings. There she learns about the halflings and discovers the real Madeline has been dead for years. Madeline was a halfling and has taken on this form to basically escape from the woods. Now, Mina goes to Sierra's house with the information, and then she realizes, and this is a part of the big twist as well, Sierra is actually Madeline mimicking her, because the real Sierra wasn't home. The real Sierra comes home, driving up the driveway, and she's totally unaware what's happening. And then there's this fight. Madeline attacks Sierra, knocks her out, and she plans to kill them. And, it's this back and forth. She's chasing Mina, she's attacking Mina. And ultimately, and this is where Dakota Fanning was really great in this role, she appeals to the humanity inside of Madeline. and she convinces her that she could find other halflings like herself and live in peace and harmony, basically. And then Madeline decides against killing her. Now, what's interesting about this movie is Mina is a watcher of sorts too. She's been looking at herself in the film, at the mirrors at her house, and of course, at the mirrors of the coop, and dealing with her guilt of her mother's death in a car crash. And this was a really big thing in the film because you had seen flashes of something going on with Mina's past, and you knew that there was some type of tragedy that befell her. And we eventually find out that she was in the car with her sister, and her mother was driving them somewhere. And Mina basically was acting out as a young kid sometimes will, and her mother took her eyes off the road and was distracted, and there was a car crash, and her mother died from that. And so that gives you all the understanding of Mina and her character and why she has so much guilt. And even in the beginning of the film, or near the beginning of the film, when she first meets the strangers, and she talks about how she's not a good person and all of these different types of things. And so now you kind of understand the weight that's on her shoulder, and it also explains why Dakota Fanning played the character this way. She definitely has a big weight on her shoulders, and you could see that she has a very haunted performance. Now, I know that some people that have seen the film think that the character is a little flat and so forth, and I can understand that, and that's perfectly fine. But I definitely think there's reasoning behind it because of the trauma that she went through and all the guilt that she feels since she was a child. I mean, we're talking whatever it is, 20 years of guilt. So I think that comes through in her performance, and I actually enjoyed Dakota Fanning's performance in this film. Again, to me, what's interesting about The Watchers is that it's giving you just a little bit of a different angle, pun intended. It's giving you a different angle for a horror thriller, or supernatural thriller, whatever you want to call it. And you have these characters that are very different than what you would usually see, right? All of these actors did a hell of a job, and especially Owen Foray, who was very intense and charismatic and so forth. But I think that this explains so much about Mina's character. It also explains a lot about Madeline's character and why she knew so much. She knew about the rules. She was trying to kind of maneuver the group in a certain way, and who knows what her reasoning was. I mean, she's a halfling, so maybe even though she was kind of ostracized by the other watchers, the fairies, she's still a part of them. She's still half of them. So maybe what she was trying to do was to allow the characters to understand the rules so that her people could also learn from the humans. And who knows? I mean, it's kind of you kind of wonder, is Madeline, is she a good character or a bad character? I think it's more so in between, and those type of characters always interest me a hell of a lot. I'm really invested in those type of characters, because then you're trying to really understand all the little nuances that they have. But a lot of cool themes in this. I mean, obviously Mina, in a sense, was a watcher too. She was dressing up as others, using different wigs, meeting people and acting like someone that she's not. The movie is showing both sides of this, and that was interesting. When she was in the coop, and deep down she was dealing with all of this guilt and all of this resentment. And also we see Madeline, who was also pretending to be someone else. Deep down she had guilt and she had resentment for the fact of being different, and maybe thinking that there weren't any other halflings like her. And that was part of what saved Mina and Sierra at the end. The Watchers didn't see Madeline as one of them. Their anger against humankind was transferred onto her because she was a halfling. But as much as she had this resentment, the human side of her showed that caring for the strangers in the coop, ultimately sparing Mina and Sierra. It's getting past your guilt and overcoming it. It's understanding who you are and coming to terms with it, seeing your true self like that reflection in the mirror. And I think that was a really cool theme that played out through the whole film from beginning to end. Mina had to do this, and she eventually came out to the other side for herself. And at the end of the film, she also rekindles her relationship with her sister, who is a twin. And that was the other thing that was really cool, all this duality that's happening. But she rekindles that relationship with her twin sister and her sister's children. She tells her sister the whole story of what had happened at the coop, and also that Mina knows that Madeline is still out there and watching her, and she thinks she sees her sometimes as a little child. We see a scene of a little girl that's outside of Mina's window watching her. You got windows, mirrors, twins. It's all there in the film. And even if it isn't completely balanced throughout the entire runtime of the film, it's interesting to me. It really, it's something to absorb, and it makes me think a little bit about it. Here's something that came to my mind as well. This is a huge thing that came to my mind, a big theory. But what if Mina is a watcher too? It seems like a stretch, but the film has all these different parallels with her and the watchers. She's constantly studying others and pretending to be others, drawing pictures of others and so forth. The movie says that people are drawn to this forest. What if that's why she was drawn there? Madeline was a halfling, and that's why she could move around in the light. But what if Mina was the offspring of two halflings, and that's why she's even more human than Madeline? It's an interesting thing to think about, but it's quite possible because of the setup of this world in the film. Perhaps she and her twin sister have the halfling's blood in them. That's interesting. It really is, and it makes you look at the film in a little bit of a different way. The next time I watch this film, I'm going to have that kind of playing in my head too. A big part of what attracts me to the M. Night films that I'm a big fan of, and it looks as though Night Shyamalan has done something very similar. There's all of these different layers that are playing throughout the film, and to me, that's what makes it an enjoyable film. It's definitely not perfect, and I know that the RT score isn't good, and that a lot of people have shown disappointment. And I think part of it too is, what were people expecting when they go in to see this? If you're going into it thinking there's going to be this huge horror movie about these monsters that are going to be ripping people apart, tearing them apart, all this blood and gore coming at you at the screen, you're going to totally hate this movie. There's no doubt about it. Fortunately for myself, going into the film, seeing the trailer and hearing a little bit of what the film was about in general, and of course, being the daughter of M. Night Shyamalan, and she said she wanted to do a movie that could cater to the expectations of people that know his movies and love his movies, but also something where she could kind of go off on her own and create her own path. So I kind of knew this was going to be a movie of that ilk. It reminded me of Lost in a lot of ways. When you watch Lost, and it's this top layer, and you have this question that you have to answer, and you go to the next layer and the next layer, and you kind of go on this rabbit trail. You're in the forest, you're finding a bunker, and you're finding a hatch, you're going down into a basement, and you got a computer that's giving you just a little bit, and you go, and it's just really interesting, and I enjoy these types of movies. Definitely a slow burn, no doubt about it. An interesting initial directorial debut for Night Shyamalan, and it was enjoyable. It's definitely something that I hope does well enough, because there could be a sequel. There could be a sequel as far as how the film ends it, because again, Mina has this connection with the Watchers now, and Madeline as a character is searching for others of her kind. And like I said, I'm really on the boat of Mina could be a Watcher or a descendant of the Watchers. Again, the movie sets those things up. I know it could be a little far-fetched and it's not necessary, but it just made me think about it in that context. And it's a little bit different from the ending of the book. The ending of the book, Madeline warns Mina of the power of the Watchers and so forth, but there is going to be another book that's coming out later on this year. I believe it's in October or November, where the story will continue, and I think that that's really cool. So obviously, this movie has to do well in order for a sequel to even be thought of, and who knows, it's probably not going to happen. But it's interesting to entertain the thought. So for you guys here, let's talk about this in the comment section down below. What did you think of all these little threads in the movie, especially at the end with the multiple twists? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Are you a fan of M. Night movies or not? Let's talk about it. And of course, the big theory for me is, do you think that there's any chance that they were alluding to the fact that Mina could be a Watcher, or at least a descendant of the Watchers, maybe the offspring of two halflings? What do you think? Let's talk about it down in the comment section down below. If you haven't hit the like button, please do. It helps to support the channel. I'd appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the Night Watch Zone, this is the time to do it. Do it and become part of this fantastic movie community where you'll never love and talk about movies the same. So I'll catch you guys later. If you like this video, check out some of my other movie reviews and content. I'm sure you'll enjoy those too. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.